Thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America. I am grateful for the time that you're spending with me, whether it's on my podcast, my YouTube, or my Rumble channel, all at William Wallace for America. It's where it starts, but you can also find me on X and Instagram and Facebook, all at William Wallace for America. Actually, on X, it's Wallace for America. Today's episode is why I believe that our Constitution is being held together by band-aids. Our Bill of Rights with a couple post-it notes. Our country is being held loosely together by big business, big industry, and the politicians who need us. Of course, big business and big industry only needs us to make their products, buy their products, use their products, dispose of their products, and buy more of their products. And our politicians need us, of course, to keep them in office. Well, maybe not anymore because they got the voting machines keeping them in office now, but at least to make them feel relevant. And big business and big industry and the wealthy people need us not only buying their products, but of course, keeping them in business. And all of them need us to flow, or to all of them need us as a way to flow the money to them, through them, back to them, and keep them wealthy. Like my podcast intro says, I am a conservative minded, America first kind of guy, pro military, pro Second Amendment, Bible thumping. I, I'm just that guy that is that average, maybe more than average American citizen. If you listen in today's news, you'll find that more people are moving further to the left and another group moving further to the right. While I consider myself a guy that wants to make America great again, I'm more of a guy that just believes in all of the things that fall under that umbrella. Now, of course, there are people in that movement that I might not agree with all the time. There's even people that started that movement that I might not agree with all the time, but I agree with the general direction where everything is going within it. But it's up to us that is in the movement to right the wrongs and keep the ship on track. I talk to a lot of people in public that'll come to me and they'll say, I voted for Trump, but I don't like what he did here. Or I voted for this politician, but I don't like what they are doing over there. Or they, don't like the general direction that the government still goes in all the time, like when they keep doing these, spending bills where they keep kicking the debt down the road. It doesn't mean that we run away from the movement. It doesn't mean that we run away from the people that are in it. It simply means that we have to work harder to expose the things that they're doing wrong. Don't sweep it under the table. Don't ignore it just because they're in our movement. Don't ignore it just because they might have started the movement. You got to be willing to stay in this fight, because the general direction of the right-leaning Republican, conservative-minded, Make America Great movement is still a much better direction than what's happening on the left. What's happening with, I don't even want to say the Democrats, because not all the Democrats are bad. I'm going to tell you, there are many Democrats who are actually more conservative and even some of them more American-minded than some people on the right. They just don't like, they just have a greater dislike for either some issues on the right or some leaders on the right. Not even leaders, elected officials, because none of them are really leaders. I mean, we have to call them leaders, but the reality is they're elected to that office. But it's up to us to be able to help them lead in a better direction, which is why we just got to call out the bad and push harder for the good. And that's what it's going to take to keep America on track, but bring more people into the movement. And I don't even want to say the conservative movement. Again, I repeat this all the time. I get it. But because there are people that are left of center or vote left of center that are actually, believe it or not, more conservative minded than some of my friends that, wave conservative flags are. It's up to us to find ways to listen to what keeps them voting Democrat or listen to their concerns as a way to find solutions to bring them back to our side, to bring them back to the conservative way or conservative thinking way. You know what? I'm still getting that wrong. The conservative voting way. Because while they may be more conservative in a lot of ways than people who vote conservative, they don't vote it because they've been convinced, of course, like I said, that conservative is bad or somebody on the conservative side is bad, that they ignore that they are more conservative. It's up to us to find ways to show them that they'd be better off fighting with us on the conservative side than fighting against us because of one or two issues. So my eyes are open and I see things and I hear things that I don't agree with in my in my camp, if you will, and I try to call it out. But what I try to do harder and even more is listening to other side to find out why they left us, why they don't fight with us. I mean, I'm going to do some memes here in a minute. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to do some memes here to be able to point out some of this hypocrisy, to point out some of this idiocy that's happening when people on the left aren't really paying attention to the things that matter. Instead, they're fighting with people over to defend an issue that they've been riled up to believe is more important than some of the values that they don't realize that they have inside. That's right. I'll remind you again, conservatism is just simply believing in better schools, safer environments, but more opportunities for everybody, better neighborhoods, better communities, better education for our children, a future where our country is held together with elected officials who are fiscally responsible and doing the right thing and not committing all the fraud. Some of these guys don't even realize on the left that they are defending the fraud by defending the elected officials just because of one issue or maybe two at the most. So I'm just trying to open up more people's eyes when I show these things. I'm not trying to just show things because they are right leaning where I am or they're in the conservative Republican minded space where I tend to hang out. I'm trying to show the hypocrisy through those things, which you'll see in some of the memes I'm getting ready to bring up, as a way to show you that we have more in common on the right side of the fence than we do on the left side. And you don't have to leave your beliefs, your ideologies to engage with somebody on the other side to show them that our ways are going to bring more prosperity to Americans, bring in legal immigration, to bring in people who want to assimilate and be able to help America and be able to not only assimilate and help America, but be a part of the things that demand better representation from our elected officials. I choose to understand some of these things and not walk away because I think it's better to do by trying to understand. You'll find more solutions. Everyone is just distracted by those little things and they don't see the bigger picture. Don't get me wrong. Many of the people supporting the crazy ideas and pushing the narratives that they spend so much time doing that, they don't get the bigger picture. We can do some things together to right this ship. People on our own side of the fence, on the right, Republicans, people within the MAGA movement, are some of us are loosely tied together because of the things that we don't agree with. And that's okay. which is why we got to work harder to call out the bad, to bring in the good. You will find I just have a different approach. Not I don't like to call, look, I see this all the time. People are calling out people in our own party. I don't like to call people in our own party. If they're doing something wrong, I like to point out what I don't agree with, because focusing on a person instead of focusing on what you don't agree with often helps people fall into that trap where they brand somebody based on a person instead of focusing on solutions to bad ideas to get better good ideas. I'm like I said, I'm just that guy on the right that wants to find ways to bring more people together to the solutions that are going to put America first, make our Constitution relevant again, be able to find ways to put God back in our country, to give him the respect for our freedoms and our liberties that, might I say, enlightened and inspired the founding fathers to create the greatest document that has ever been written in our history of mankind. And that's the things that we need to find, to be able to focus on, to make better. You know, I get a little upset with what Trump says sometimes, but I'm not going to get to a point where you walk away from the person because you don't like some things that are going on. I think there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that we don't get to see. There's a lot of things going on that we've seen that. And look, when I bring these memes up, you're going to see some of the hypocrisy. I like to point it out in memes because look, a lot of things that people are talking about. It's on their minds. They're putting out these memes, and when I read these things, a lot of other things come to my mind. And so, hang on one second, and we're gonna get started with those here in just a second. But before we do, what I'd like for you to please do also is go visit my friend at My Pillow, and if you use the discount code WWFA at mypillow.com/WWFA. You're going to be able to get products at a huge discount and also support my show. Now, let's get started with those memes here in just a second. All right, we're going to get started with these memes up first. You'll see my Patriot Mobile meme. Of course, I always bring that one up. But before we also get started with the memes, I also want to double down on something that I've said a little bit throughout. Don't give up on the movement to make America great again because you don't like things that are said, you don't like some of the policies, because that's a small percentage of the movement that's going in the direction to put America first. I think there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. But again, if you don't like something that's being said or done within the movement, make a point of it to point out the problem, not the person, as a way to be able to offer better solutions, what should be done instead. Because when you keep the people gathered around the movement and you point out the bad and you talk about the solutions and you talk about the people that talk with the people that disagree with you, you find oftentimes better solutions that brings them to our side as a way to be able to make the movement bigger. And then it's a bottom up. People in elected office, they don't listen to us unless we have the numbers. They don't listen to us unless more of us are asking them to, we'll say. That's why it's more important for more of us to come together on good ideas and solutions to be able to change the direction the way we would like it to be, especially when it comes to putting our Constitution and our country first. My first meme of the day is, oh, here we go. It says Joe Biden. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can kind of see it. It makes me a little small down here if you're watching the video. Joe Biden won Georgia by 11,779 votes. Now, over 5 years later, they admit that at least 315,000 votes in Georgia were actually counted illegally. President Trump has known all along this is really bad. Yep, I'm going to bring up of the election fraud again. This is your daily dose of election fraud. I actually have another meme coming up that talks about this also. But take note, they covered up with the cloak of that's a conspiracy, or they make the person saying, as they did with Donald Trump, then look bad. So you don't notice what really happened, or you doubt it or don't believe it. And as a result, it gets kicked down the curb or kicked down the road until years later when the actual proof comes out. But by that time, it's old news, so people forget about it. That's what they want, which is what I think happens a lot of times now. They'll take something that Donald Trump says now, or even any other elected official says that's stupid, which happens quite regularly, unfortunately, because we give them way too much attention and way too much time and living rent free in our brains. And that's how they get away with what they say. But if we do it the right way, we can oftentimes find that the people who brought a movement together, we can improve the movement, improve the messaging by calling it out the right way instead of throwing people under the bus. And that's a broad brush there, but you get the general idea. My next meme, the fact that Democrats won't pass a voter ID bill tells you that they cheat in elections. That again has been something that's been, oh, that's just a conspiracy. Go back to your voting machines. Everything's all right. Go back to sleep. The problem is that there are countless news stories about how much cheating goes on in elections, and everybody again rolls their eyes. Well, that's been happening for generations. So do we just shut up and not talk about it? Or do we constantly remind people? Because that's what they want. They want you to go to sleep and forget about it, because the more we go to sleep and forget about it now, the less our future generations will know about it or be aware of it and won't do anything about it, which is even more reason why when an elected official says something stupid now, we got to point it out in a solution-based way. So that way, our younger generation that's getting involved in politics doesn't just see the solution as throwing the person or the elected official under the bus. It sees the direction or the path that they have to take as one to work with others to find better solutions, so we can not only bring our community and people together on ideas, but we can start to find ways to mend our Constitution so we don't need Band-Aids, which our politicians keep doing. That's what they're doing. They just keep putting Band-Aids all over our Constitution to hold it together. Our Constitution has been so unraveled, so torn up by thousands and other generations of politicians, we don't even realize it. You look in the back of it, it's all Band-Aids hoping to hold. You look in the front, oh, wow, that's our Constitution. You look on the back, all the Band-Aids are holding it together that they've done through legislation, sneaking in bills, sneaking in things in these ominous bills that circumvent our Constitution. It's because we get distracted by things, all the little things, that we don't look at the bigger picture or finding the ideas to solve the problems. But again, the fact that Democrats won't pass a voter ID bill, and they got all the reasons, you've been hearing it, oh, that it's racist. They want you to believe that we aren't intelligent enough to get an ID, or they will find a way to slant it that it's against women's rights or black people's rights or whatever. They convince you with the narrative instead of the facts. They are fine with giving billions of dollars to the Ukraine, but they hate Trump for sending $1,776 checks to the military service members. This is a little sidestep or parallel thought that I'm kind of going a different direction on for just a second. They have made Trump to be so bad, and I get it. He's made some mistakes. I'm not gonna lie, but they've made those mistakes to be bigger than the good things that he's been doing, that he does. They make the bad things that he says so big in the media, and they perpetuate the things that he says that are wrong as a way to cover up all the good things that he does. And then many of the good things that he does, they will just say, "Oh, that's bad. You know all the other things that he says that are bad and wrong. Well, that's just another one of them." And then the people in the back, the people that pay attention, they go to sleep and they go, "Yeah, you're right. Everything he does is bad." Don't get me wrong. Trump says some things that I don't agree with. He does some things that I don't agree with. But it doesn't mean that the movement is bad. It doesn't mean that the general direction is bad. It just simply means that we have to work together harder on the good solutions to be able to have this constitution in our country held together by we the people instead of the big conglomerates, the big industry, and all the band-aids. My next meme up. Oh, this is for my Louisiana people, where they're finding fraud in all the states. I want to point out something. Our federal government, our Bill of Rights in our Constitution has our 10th Amendment, states' rights. Our federal government has continuously circumvented the 10th Amendment, pierced the veil of the 10th Amendment with federal dollars. Now we find that our states have had to, how shall we say, have been able to get away with, they've been forced to do things with the federal money. But in reverse, they're able to use that federal money for a lot of the fraud. They found it in Minnesota, they're finding it in California, and yes, even in conservative red states like Louisiana, they have Medicaid fraud that is up to the $9.6 million in payments for deceased beneficiaries. My friends, again, these memes prove not only what's on our minds, but some of the hypocrisy and some of the things that we aren't even watching because we're so busy being distracted by the wrong or something bad that Trump says or the narratives that are being perpetuated on the left that ICE is bad or whatever the case may be because a mistake happened. But of course, they don't talk about how many of those mistakes are happening because of the stupid things that they are doing. They are fine with my next meme. They are fine with giving billions to the Ukraine, but hate. Oh, I've already said this one. This is already a repeat. Sorry. The next meme. Chuck Schumer voted yes for the Maritime Drug Law Enforcement Act of 1986, authorizing the military to fire on drug smuggling boats. The House approved it 392 to 16, and the Senate approved it 97 to 2. My friends, when they tell you that, again, and this is something that came out a while back, well, Trump is bad because he's allowing, them to, just blow these boats up. And it became an anti-Trump thing. They perpetuated it in the narrative as Trump made a mistake or did something wrong. But the the media blowing it up so much, no pun intended, the media trying to drag Trump's actions through the mud as being a bad, horrible thing, were only to cover up the fact that the Democrats supported this back then. I looked this up. Yes, it's a fact. The Democrats supported this. They did. So now this is another thing that's going on. Like I said, when people point out, oh, Trump was anti-Second Amendment because he said you shouldn't bring a gun to a protest. I talked about that on my show the other day. Again, we've got to point out the bad things with other solutions, not to call the person out that said it or did it, but to fight it with a different angle so we can win more people to the conservative movement, the movement that aims to preserve all the great things about America. We can get more people to our side if we're able to kind of say, look, yeah, that was a dumb thing to say or a dumb thing to do, but let's talk about not only the solutions, but let's talk about why they're saying it. And things like this, news stories like this, or voting records point out why they're doing it. They're not doing it necessarily because they think Trump is really bad, or the Republicans are really bad, or the conservatives are really bad. They're doing it to cover up some of their past actions or what they're doing or what they're working on, like in some cases, like I pointed out a little bit of voter fraud. Chuck Schumer voted for the Maritime Drug Law Enforcement Act, but might not point out that they blew up a bunch of boats and everybody got mad about it and said Trump was doing the wrong thing. But look, we don't see it anymore because it stopped. They're not trying to run drug boats to America anymore because they realize they're just going to get blown up. Sure, they're probably looking for other ways, but these are the other things that come out of those news stories. Again, I'm not defending stupid things, but I'm taking the opportunity to point out how distracted we get about the stupid things that are being said and the news stories that cover the stupid things instead of looking at the overall picture on what we have to do to continue. They are trying to destroy a movement, and a large population of people that want America to have the opportunities for everybody, that want people in America to be successful, that want America to be that shining city on a hill, people that want law and order back in our country, people that want our Constitution relevant again. They want to do anything that they can to destroy the movement. And so every time the person that is perceived as starting the movement, which Donald Trump did not start the MAGA movement. Donald Trump did not start the movement to make America great. It has been in the hearts and minds of millions of Americans for a long time. The reason Donald Trump was able to get elected is because he answered the call of millions and millions and millions of Americans that simply want common sense brought back to our country, that simply want the average American to be made relevant again. We can look through history and look at stupid things that leaders, elected officials, people who created some other great movements in our world's history, we can look at the stupid things they've done and said, especially things that they've done. You look at Winston Churchill. People look at a lot of the great things that he did for his country, but the man didn't have a squeaky clean life either. Again, don't rely on the people in the movement. Rely on the people, or don't rely on the people that have started or led or are directing the movement. Look at the people in the movement, and we can grow our numbers in the movement doing the right thing by simply finding the things that we have in common without giving up our own ideologies. I will say there's people on the left that I think we don't have any hope in bringing into the Make America Great movement, or bringing the making America Americans. I'll say I don't think we can bring everybody into the making Americans great again, making Americans important again movement. There are people that are just lost. Here's the next meme that kind of proves my point on this. Here's a meme that says, and this is literally going on in Minnesota, and I've got friends who agree with this. I've got people on the left that are my friends that I just scratch my head and go, why? Now I listen to them. Don't get me wrong. I listen to them for understanding, not agreement, but for understanding, because when you kind of understand, you can kind of go, yep, I will never think that way. But you might understand that there's other ideas and solutions, or you might learn from it to be able to come up with other ideas and solutions. For instance, anti-ICE activist describes roadblocks and traffic checkpoints that they set up in Minneapolis. Quote, "We are literally creating a place that we know who's coming and going in and out of our neighborhoods." They did this as an anti-ICE protest. But it shows you the hypocrisy and stupidity of some people that become so sold or so brainwashed by the narratives that they're listening to, or the demonizing of the other side so much. Like, they are demonizing immigration. And I pointed out in my show the other day that I think what's happening with immigration is it's gotten so out of hand in the last 20, 30 years, last several presidents who used immigration to support their ideologies, or to be able to um, further their agenda through immigrants, that our immigration system has become overwhelmed. It's become bloated. It's become inefficient. So ICE is struggling to get things back under control because we have a president, albeit that they've made him look bad with some of the things that he's said and done, who's trying to say, look, ICE, do your job. Because I have some other memes coming up. They're going to show what past presidents on the Democrat side have done that are worse. But again, they'll take something wrong that's being said or done, they'll blow it up in a way that pushes a lot of people away, even people on our own side away. But if we can point out why it's being said or other solutions, we show that the people in the movement are free thinking, critical thinking minded people that are going to continue to try to do the right thing. Unlike people like this meme points out, where they listen to the bad meme or they listen to the bad narrative and they get convinced that ICE is bad. So they're going to do everything that they can to work against them, like setting up roadblocks and checking their papers to know who's coming and going, which is exactly what ICE is doing. So they're doing exactly what they're saying ICE is doing that they think is wrong. It shows you the hypocrisy and the brainwashing that's going on the other side. So don't get so hell-bent on the narratives that you don't agree with that you don't see your own hypocrisy on what's going on like these people do. Another meme that was very similar, it says, it shows a cartoon, why the roadblock coming out of the words coming out of the car in the cartoon, stopping fascism, your papers, please. Again, they're doing the same actions that they're protesting against. And they don't even realize the hypocrisy because they've been brainwashed by the memes and narratives that are working against the people that are trying to do the right thing. But again, that's why, look, elected officials are always going to say stupid things. You got to watch their actions to be able to call on them to do the right thing. And we got to point it out in a way. That's why I stay in the movement to make America first again, to make the citizens of America a priority again, to make our Constitution relevant again, to make our Bill of Rights important again because there are more people in this movement doing the right thing than the hypocritical people on the left. Many of them will never agree with good solutions. But a lot of people on that side are waking up and realizing because of that hypocrisy that they see pushing further and further to the left, but also because more and more people in the MAGA movement are talking about the good ideas and kicking out some of the elected officials. There are a lot of elected officials that are not only leaving the movement or leaving politics because they see what's going on behind the scenes, but they're working harder to change things to make things better within the movement that puts Americans first. My next meme says, isn't it intriguing how nobody in Congress can balance a budget, but they've all managed to somehow become millionaires? These are the things that we need to bring more people together on because while we're being distracted by the memes and narratives, we're losing sight of all the elected officials, Republicans and Democrats, that are getting rich while they're in Congress, that are getting rich while they're not even managing our money better. It's amazing how wealthy they get, but how poor America gets. And that's what happens when we're all being distracted by bad words or the hot narratives that are being perpetuated by the people that don't want us to see what's going on. Look, when politicians are becoming millionaires and getting wealthier and the lobbyists are are facilitating this, the media is getting richer off the process, and we aren't noticing it because we're too distracted by what somebody says or does or our feelings and how they've manipulated. I said this also on the other day on other shows. We're not losing our freedoms. They're not trying to take them away. They're just learning how to control our freedoms through the memes and the narratives and the hot topics and the bad words and who said what. I get it that bad things are being said, but let's not focus on the shiny objects because that's just a distraction. And speaking again of other distractions, there was a story out the other day that says CBS, NBC newscasts are not covering the Chinese biolab that was found. Like, and it's not even being talked about a lot. They have found a Chinese biolab. Now, I've talked to friends in the FBI, friends in the CIA, and we as a country don't realize how many biolabs are on their radars. How many biolabs are already in America, just waiting to be released? Some deadly disease released on our population. They don't need to rob our freedoms. They're being controlled. They don't need to steal our freedoms because we're being too distracted to see the attacks that are coming from within through the terrorist activities and the terrorists that have been allowed in through our broken immigration system that nobody has even tried to fix. We're too distracted by the hot topics and we don't come together on the solutions and demand our elected officials do things better than convince us that we need to listen to them on every word that they say and do. Biolabs are happening in our country, and if we don't do something about it, if we don't demand that our politicians pay attention, and we have to shift their attention sometimes to things like this, or we're going to get not only run over via the Constitution being shredded, we're going to get run over by all the terrorists that have been allowed in our country through the bad immigration policies that have not been fixed by our politicians because we're too busy chasing the shiny objects. And the next meme up, oh, I love my Ayn Rand. Capitalism has been called a system of greed. It's a picture of Ayn Rand, by the way. Capitalism has been called a system of greed, yet it is a system that raised the standard of living of its poorest citizens to heights no collectivist system has ever begun to equal. We're told capitalism is bad by government officials on the left, by liberal-minded people that don't realize that they've gotten rich off of or feed their family off of capitalism. And we're continually told how bad it is. But some of the wealthiest oligarchs in our country have gotten rich off of capitalism. Capitalism offers opportunity to the poorest of people, can have a job, start a business using capitalism. It offers a way out. But again, we're too distracted by the shiny objects to realize that if we just use capitalism, we can lift ourselves out of the poverty and not be as reliant on the government. But the government doesn't want you to realize that because they want you to be dependent on them, which is why that many Democratic politicians on the left want you to believe that capitalism is bad. Bernie Sanders, as an example, will tell you how bad capitalism is, but he will fly his butt around the world on a plane paid for through capitalism. My friends, we need to stop focusing on what's being said and done in the media and focusing on the ideas that bring more of us together. So united, we can demand that our Bill of Rights gets respected. We can demand that our Constitution gets back in force and demand term limits for that matter. So my next meme up, Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal says ensuring only American citizens are voting in elections is totalitarianism, or a totalitarian and authoritarian. It's a picture of Richard Blumenthal with the quote underneath, of course. The reason they want illegals to be able to vote in our elections is simply because more Americans are waking up. More Americans are realizing that the Democrat policies are failing Americans. That Democrat policies are failing our country. So they want more illegals in our country to get a bigger voting base. Look, and they don't have to flood our country. They certainly don't want to dilute our country with illegal aliens. They want to focus them in certain cities and states because those voting blocks can turn a city or a state in elections through the narratives, feeding them, by the way, that they can be able to focus their money in certain states to be able to swing elections. But they also want illegals voting in there because they know that illegal aliens brought in with government money and the narratives keep them in office. But the Democrats will tell you Trump is bad because he's using ICE. Mistakes are happening, and I'll agree with that. But if we start talking about solutions instead of mistakes and things that people are saying, and we look towards those solutions, we can find ways to be able to get illegal aliens out of our country, we'll just say safely. But they're firing up those Democrats, they're firing up those ideologies to inflame people and give them not road rage, but protest rage. Gets them excited. Mistakes happen. Then they're able to say Trump is bad. And again, I'm not defending Trump on everything when I use those examples, but it is the seems to be the object of a lot of criticism from a lot of people, or the object of, in some cases, the credit. It could be any elected official. It's just that Trump's the one that catches it all the time right now. You look at all the elected officials, all of them say stupid stuff. They're doing stupid things. But we have to find a way to say, hey, look, take that stupid thing and let's flip it with a solution to keep the direction going in the correct direction to save America. Blumenthal saying that ensuring that only American citizens vote in our elections is totalitarian and authoritarian is not only crazy and absurd, but that's the whole mindset of a lot of people on the left. They were convinced that, we took over their land. We took over their somebody else's country. We should be willing to just let everybody come in here. But the problem with it is you end up allowing in people unvetted. And right now in our country, as in the example of the biolab and other terrorist groups that are known to be here, our country could be under attack at any time because the priority for people on the left and Democrats is keeping themselves in office, flipping the country to a more socialistic, collectivist state, because government money being printed not only keeps them in office, but makes them and their donors a lot wealthier and isolated from the regular citizen, which of course they still need us to not only to funnel that money, but also as ways to be able to, we got to clean their houses and build their shit, right? All right, we got, here you go. Here's an example of hypocrisy at its finest. In 2005, Barack Obama said, we simply cannot allow, this is a meme with Barack Obama's picture, of course, in his younger years, with his quote saying, he says, we simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to becoming immigrants in this country. That was what he said in 2005. But of course, all of these things get covered up when a current elected official says something wrong, or the current memes and narratives to bring the country where they want it to be become more important than what they said in the past. And to cover up their hypocrisy, the media just fans the flames with the current news stories to keep everybody distracted. I repeat myself on purpose multiple times for the reason that no matter how many times it gets said, people still forget it. People still allow themselves to get distracted. And things are only going to get worse the more unorganized our immigration system is as a result of what's happening. The more unorganized our bureaucratic state is. And I say unorganized because it's become so bloated with people. Our bureaucratic system has become so bloated with people within the system that get to change some rules and regulations and these bureaucratic agencies and do some things that cause our government to run more efficiently. If you think government does a better job, have you been to the DMV lately? I have a meme on that too, by the way. Look at how inefficient our government has been run, by how much debt our country is in, by looking at our infrastructure. And then, yes, look at the stupid things that politicians are saying and doing. When you look at all those things and you realize, or you will realize, that things are so bad because we are not finding the things to bring better solutions to the table. The next meme, there were no riots. Picture of Bill Clinton and Obama. Obama showing 5,296,561 deportations, and Bill Clinton showing 12,290,905 deportations. So why were they deporting more than 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 Trump is, and maybe Trump's really not anti-immigrant, or maybe the Clintons really were anti-immigrant, although were they deporting them, and are the numbers being manipulated? Let me go there for a second. We could look at the number of deportations and say, well, the Democrats have Democrat presidents have deported more people than Trump has. So why the argument now? Is it the people that they're deporting, or is it because it's politically convenient to call out the deportations now? If this is true, why were they deporting millions during their presidencies, but not wanting them deported now? Well, I point to Trump, because maybe they don't want him deporting people, or maybe it makes him look bad. These are the things that we have to start looking at more and more in the bigger picture as a way to find the actual solutions, because they don't want you to find the solutions. They want to distract you with these things. And you could say, William, you're bringing up the distractions right now by showing Obama deported 5 million, Bill Clinton deported 12 million, and you're comparing to Trump only deporting a few million now. Looking at all of the facts and looking at everything that's going on opens your eyes up to say, there's a bigger picture going on. And you're not looking at it because you're too distracted looking at the smaller things, or getting mad because, this politician did that, or this group did that. The more facts we bring out, the more we put it out there, the less they can distract us with the shiny objects being used to divide us up. My next meme, it says, weird that ICE is operating in dozens of states, but it only gets violent in the one where we just uncovered a $1 billion fraud ring with probable links to the governor. I'll add Tim Walz to that. It's a guy holding up a beer, kind of cheers as if he said that. Like I'm telling you, my friends, if we don't start focusing on what's behind the curtain that they're holding up, covering up the truth, if we don't start peeking behind the curtain and talking about it, they're not going to need a curtain after a while. Actually, right now, they're doing things in our face. But many people have already been brainwashed by the shiny objects that they're not paying attention to the fraud that's going on. They don't care, because what pulls their heartstrings about the 1 or 2 people that got killed in Minnesota is much greater than the 30,000 people that have been killed in Iran, or the thousands that have been killed in Ukraine. Because, they're over there. Yeah, that's them. If you're really going to care about humanitarianism, you need to point it out everywhere. Not that you shouldn't point it out here because 30,000 is greater than 2, but don't call yourself a humanitarian if you're not talking about it all and pointing it all out, because it's all covering up everything else. The next meme, this is interesting. I pulled up some backup information on that. A woman in a little word bubble above her says, do you walk around with citizenship papers? No citizen carries papers every day. And of course, the guy points out, U.S. citizens don't carry citizenship papers. I'm going to have to lean in on this a little bit more. Let me lean in a little bit more on this one. leaning in a little bit more on this one. It says U.S. citizens don't carry citizenship papers because we don't have to. That part you managed to get right. But here's the part you forgot. According to a U.S. U.S. What's a U.S. Oh, it gives a U.S. code. Every alien 18 years of age and over shall at all times carry with him, or her for that matter, any certificate of alien registration or alien registration receipt card. So anyone here who isn't a U.S. citizen actually does have to carry papers. It's federal law. And for my friends that are making roadblocks to ICE agents in their neighborhood, or pretend, because ICE agents don't have to abide uh, abide by those things. Those people are asking to show papers. I guess it's a hypocrisy, but I looked it up and it is true. Although I will tell you the age is a little bit different in some of them. Under federal law, specifically the Alien Registration Act, all foreign nationals aged 14 and older who are in the U.S. for 30 days or more must register and carry proof of their registration at all times. Failure to comply can result in civil and criminal. And then there's about 3 or 4 other things that came up in that search that also agree with that information that they have to show citizenship papers if they are not U.S. citizens. Breaking news, CNN is another meme. CNN showing that the overwhelming majority of Americans support voter ID. Republicans, 95%. Democrats, 71%. Voter ID is not racist. It's common sense. But they're going to tell you the other 29% of Democrats and the other 5% of Republicans will tell you that that is conspiratorial. It's racist. It's not right. We don't need to, because they're too distracted by the stupid shit that some elected officials say or other Democrats are saying, or the memes or the heartstrings or any of that. It's all a distraction when you're not paying attention to the facts. And most Americans want voter ID because they want to feel secure about elections. They want to feel comfortable knowing that elections are secure. And for all those in the back, oh, they're all secure. We got these machines making sure of it. Well, paper ballots, of course, there's systems in place there that allow people to steal elections through paper ballots, i.e., ballot harvesters, by the way. And there are people who are 100% secure and when they feel 100% secure that election machines are doing the trick. However, people hack in to banks, big corporations, your credit cards all the time. So electronics are not necessarily more secure, but one thing that we can do to help prevent it before it even gets to the point of ballot harvesters or whether election machines are secure or not is with voter ID, to make sure that the people who vote are actually citizens or are registered to vote or are legal to vote. Oh, I've got actually 2 more memes up, and I just kind of skipped ahead. My second to last meme, which is going to be my last meme. You know what? I'm going to skip ahead. You've already seen it if you're watching the video. Don't let Republicans cheat in 2026. Demand voter ID. So there are lots of Democrats who think that Republicans are the ones that are cheating. So if you're one of those Democrats that think Republicans are cheating, then demand voter ID so they don't cheat in 2026. Those midterms are coming up. Demand that your Democrat congressman or congresswoman gets voter ID. And the last meme that'll end the show on today is by the Tuttle twins. History wasn't written to teach you the truth, it was written to control you. So let me flip that for a second. When it says history wasn't written to teach you the truth, they always say that history belongs to the victor. And in past societies in history, we have learned today that the victors often write their own history. So future generations, I guess, get hat tipped to the victors or learn the victors' version of the truth is what to control you. Not that the past is going to control us, which they're trying to make that happen too, but they will create a history to control you for the future. They will control you with their version of history or the facts. It's up to us to write our own history. It's up to us to make sure that the future knows what actually happened in our history. It's up to us to demand that history, it not only gets written the right way, but gets done the right way. And if we continue to allow ourselves to be distracted by the shiny objects or the narratives or the things that people, our elected officials are saying or doing that's wrong, we're never going to have the opportunity to correct the wrongs. And we're never going to have the opportunity to make sure that our future gets written the right way. They're controlling us with their version of history, not our version, because we're too distracted by their version. My friends, thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate your time. Remember, exercise your medical freedom by going to rncstore.com/WWFA to get a discount. Also, please go visit my website at williamwallace.net. But most importantly, I'm going to leave you with something today. Most importantly, I know one or two subjects entertain you the most, and you focus on those. So you get educated on one or two narratives, one or two things, and you repeat it all the time. Get 10, 20 different things on your plate. I know, who has the time? Don't spend as much time on each and every one of them. Just enlighten yourselves on more facts, more things that are going on, so you can see the overall picture in a way that possibly you can find solutions that bring more people to the table. I truly believe those solutions are going to bring our country in a direction that makes our citizens great again, our country great again, our Constitution great again, but most importantly, protect it for our future generations so their history has a chance to prosper in their time. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Please share the show. I'd appreciate it. I'd be grateful for you to do that. And thank you again very much. And I will talk to you soon.